Hello and welcome to another in the series of Café Insights. I'm Andrew Vine, the founder and CEO of the Insight Bureau, and today it's my pleasure to be in conversation with Dr Mark van Rijmenam. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks for having me.
And here we are in Paddington at a cafe in Paddington. It's wonderful. I used to live here 35 years ago.
It's a long time ago. Yeah, Paddington is beautiful. Sydney, Australia is it's a great place to live. It's called the Lucky Country, and
For good reason.
For good reason.
Exactly. Well, it's great to catch up with you. I mean, you are a strategic futurist. You are a speaker around all of the fast-changing, evolving technologies that are impacting our world. So somebody we really need to be talking to right now. Tell us a little bit about what you do and your background quickly about what keeps you busy.
Sure. So as you said, I'm a strategic futurist, also known as the digital speaker, which sort of means that I think about the emerging technologies and how they change organizations and society. So I consider myself an optimistic dystopian, which is a bit of an oxymoron, but it's for me important to sort of take two opposing viewpoints in my head to be able to understand how this technology is going to affect society. Both the good, the bad, as well as the ugly. And I think it's important to look at all the different aspects.
Great. Well, we'll talk about that. I'm interested to hear. You've written a number of books as well. I mean, you actually write blogs and things. But you've written a number of books. I remember the Step into the Metaverse. We worked together on some speeches around that as well. The Organisation Tomorrow, blockchain and other things. But your latest book was interesting. It's Future Visions.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so Future Visions came out in December 2022, so exactly a year ago, and literally 2 weeks after ChatGPT was launched. And that was because I had written it entirely with ChatGPT. It took me about 5 days to write it. It took me a few more days to get it published. And the entire book was done by AI. So it's not that I said, okay, ChatGPT, write me a book. No, I had this full conversation with ChatGPT where I basically asked it, I'm going to write a book about technology and how technology will change society. Which technology should I cover? And then I asked it, which questions should I ask it? And then we used those questions to have a full conversation with ChatGPT about the future of technologies for the next 50 years. It's amazing, but for me that was a pivotal moment because I quickly noticed that the world had changed when ChatGPT was launched. Because this was such a powerful technology that the fact that I could write a book in 5 days, which was quite readable, I would say. Not as good as my other books, obviously, I have to say, but still quite readable. And this was ChatGPT 3.3, so not even ChatGPT 4. For me, that was absolutely mind-blowing. And it also sort of shows what I like to do is I always like to walk the talk, to practice what I preach. And doing these kind of things really helped me understand what the impact is of technologies and how they affect organizations, which I can pass on to companies to help them.
Yeah, and I was going to say that as well. You do take quite an innovative approach to things. I was quite impressed when I saw the recent TED talk you did in Amsterdam, right? So that was a lot of fun because you started off as a digital twin avatar, saying that you couldn't be there at the conference, and then showed up on stage. It was remarkable.
Well, yes, that was a really, really, really cool thing. It was actually the TEDx Athens.
Yes. Athens. Sorry.
But it was a really, really, I would say like a groundbreaking approach for a TED talk, and that's who I am. I live at the cutting edge. But I think the funny thing the interesting thing about the TED talk was that the story I wanted to tell is that we live in a post-truth world. And what does that mean? And what a better way to show that we are living in a post-truth world is by recreating myself digitally with all off-the-shelf technology, which didn't cost me a fortune. It cost me a couple $100 altogether to build that with the help of others. But the fact that I can do that with a couple $100 and which I thought was quite a remarkable result. Yeah. Now compare it to a bad actor with near infinite budgets, you sort of start to see what is possible. Right. And that was the message that I tried to show with my TED talk. If I can do this, then anyone can do this. And we see this happening. 2024 is going to be the year of deepfakes. We'll have deepfakes influence the US election and probably many other elections around the world. And this is really problematic. Yeah. And we need to think about how this works. And that's the message I tried to share in my TED talk. So I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I did. And I've always thought, even before AI had come along, that we were, in this environment where technology seems all very fast and exciting and opening up wonderful opportunities. And a lot of people talk about technology as this is going to be something wonderful thing that's going to happen to all of us. Now, all of a sudden, there have been a lot of voices being raised with concerns, really legitimate concerns about how this is going to impact us. And I think that's what makes you quite different. You're not this tech evangelist. You can see the potential of this to assist humans, do a lot of the heavy lifting and to do some very, very clever stuff. But it comes at a price, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really important to see both sides of the coin. Because we live in such a transformative era. We're going through a digital renaissance, but not a renaissance that will take 100 years, but a renaissance that will take 3 to 5 years. And I think it's crucial for any organization to be aware not only what the upsides are of these technologies, but also the downsides are of this technology. Because if you don't know both, how can you prepare your organization and your employees and your customers for the future? And I think that's really, really important. And so my perspective has always been to look at the optimistic side, to look at the dystopian side, and to see what do we need to do as a society and as an organization to end up in a thriving digital future instead of a dystopian one.
Yeah. Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about that there are various different events that take place, and there is a time where you want to make people feel good about the future, which is fine. But are we doing people proper justice to the way we need to think about the future? A more responsible way is to say, look, don't go in with your eyes closed. You've got to go in with your eyes open.
Well, I think I gave 2 talks for one of the world's biggest hedge funds in the world, after my talk, where I did share, both the optimistic and the dystopic side, so many people came to me and said, "Well, you really opened our eyes. We never knew." I think that is so important. We need to know what is going on. Because if you don't know what's going on, how can you prepare as an organization, as a society, as an individual, to these very disruptive changes? And I think that is really, really crucial.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's it is exciting in terms of the possibilities. Ordinary people, including ourselves, sometimes we question, is what we're doing today going to become redundant? It's a natural question to ask. But just the sheer pace that things are moving. You were talking about, when you wrote that book using GPT-3, and that was a year ago. That's a lifetime in terms of AI, isn't it?
My goodness. 2023 has been so disruptive. There's so many things has happened in the past 12 months. It's absolutely insane. Like new technologies have been announced on a daily basis, and 2023 was like the most crazy year I have experienced ever. From an organizational technology leadership perspective, everything has changed, and we have crossed into the second half of the chessboard. It took a long time to reach this, but from now on, change will be exponential, and that is very difficult for people to understand.
Exponential is the word. I was recalling. I used to work at The Economist, as you know, and we run the innovation conferences. And one of the things I always remember was how innovation upon innovation just starts to explode possibilities. And we were talking earlier about, which AI did you use to be able to create yourself as a speaker in different languages? And it's actually combining a cluster of these things together to create.
Well, I think,
do you think so?
The fact that we can use these technologies now that are all off the shelf. So what you're referring to is I've created myself as a digital twin. You can now talk to me via text, audio, video through my new app in 28 different languages. And the technologies that I use are all off the shelf. So all I did was connecting the dots. But it's not that I had to. I'm not a machine learning specialist. I have no idea how to technically create this, and still I was able to do that. And that is the era that we live in now.
Yeah. And that's actually quite encouraging, isn't it? Because it's not like, if we can all sit down and spend a bit of time investing in understanding and then utilising and playing with this new technology, that will ensure our future relevancy as we go forward.
Yes, but organizations need to be really careful about this as well. There's recent research from I think Salesforce, which showed that I think 50% of the people, employees, use technologies that are not necessarily approved by the organization but the employees are using it anyway. And from an organizational perspective, that's from a risk perspective, that's sort of at the top level. It doesn't get more risky than that.
Well, there's that classic case of a law firm using AI and then found, oops, we never really checked that.
And so yes, you can prohibit the use of ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is being powered by all kinds of other tools, which are then shared by AIs with OpenAI as well. A good example, which shocked me, is that Dropbox, which I've been using for over a decade, now by default shares your private files with OpenAI.
For a learning purpose?
For training purposes.
Training, yeah.
Which is absolutely mind-blowing. I still have a Dropbox account which was set up in Europe, so I'm still on the European guidelines, and according to the GDPR, that is not allowed. But if you're an American and you have a Dropbox account, your private files are now being sent to OpenAI by default.
All of these ethical question marks we have to raise, and you always find that the new things come along which we haven't had time to think about, let alone regulate. There's a catching up.
Well, the regulation is always way too slow. Regulation is very, very important, but I argue for a different type of regulation. Yes, the OpenAI, the AI Act in Europe is a very, very good step in the right direction. But before it becomes, legislation, that's another 2 to 3 years. By that time, the world will look fundamentally different from today. So it's likely that by that time, the regulation is already outdated. So I would argue for a different type of regulation, where we require organizations to regulate themselves by having, ethics boards, by having like an FDA type of organization that requires where you have to seek approval for your AI before you launch it. Because especially for fundamental models such as ChatGPT or like Google's Gemini or whatever, I think that will be very, very important, because otherwise we might be moving in the wrong direction.
So you do believe that we'll actually self-regulate before?
No, self-regulation is not going to happen.
Okay.
Because we're living in a capitalist society, and we've seen the debacle with OpenAI. Everything is money-driven. Right. So self-regulation is not going to happen. But what we need to regulate self-regulation. It's a bit of a weird thing to say, but we need to regulate. We need to require organizations to self-regulate, and that way we require them to adhere to certain approaches. It's like in academia. In academia, if you want to do research, it has to go through an ethics board. Why don't we have that in the commercial world, in the corporate world?
You run this thing called the FutureWise Institute, and this is where you're having much more intimate conversations, either on one-on-one or one-on-a few people. Tell us a little bit about that kind of work.
So the FutureWise Institute has slightly changed. The idea is that what we're now focusing on more at scale. Because having one-on-one conversations is really, really important. But we're now at such a pivotal moment in history that we need to work at scale. So what we're trying to do is we're building a technology that will help people understand what is going on in the world of technology, but eventually it can be any fast-changing topic, and help them understand what's happening, and help them understand what this means for them in a way that's linked to their approach, their persona, their tone of voice, their writing style, their level of expertise. So hyper-personalized for them to have a conversation with what's going on and to understand what's happening. So we can.
Well, I asked the question because we're always worried about people thinking they're going to be losing their jobs. Things are going to be evolving. That's kind of an anxious moment. But it's also a very anxious moment if you're leading organisations, and this is precisely that spot that you're talking about.
Yes, because I fundamentally believe that if you want to successfully digitally transform your organization, it means that everyone within an organization, from your warehouse employee to your legal counsel, to your marketing staff, to your finance staff, needs to understand what's going on, and they all need to speak the same language. And that's what we enable with FutureWise, is to bring that to organizations so that everyone understands what's going on. Everyone can have a conversation with the AI about what's going on, which is then shared with the strategy department, who can use that information to change the direction of the company.
Yeah. Well, it's all a very fascinating conversation. I could sit here talking to you all afternoon.
Probably, yeah.
But look, let's leave it there now, Mark. It's terrific to meet up. Thanks so much for spending some time, and we look forward to seeing you back in Asia, Singapore and Hong Kong and other places around the world.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me, Andrew. It's always a pleasure to work with you.